All right. Hello, everyone. I am Allie, and welcome to the Classics Reinvented. I dare say our most iconic panel of the day. So thank you for being here. We are going to be talking about the balancing act that these brands are doing between honoring their past and staying current with the present trends and times. So we're very lucky to be joined here today by Ricardo from HYLE
Thank you very much.
Consulting, and Kate from NARS,
Hi, Allie.
and Rodrigo from Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger. Amazing. So we are going to be digging into a bit of the history. We have brands represented on stage that were founded in 1917, the 60s, 80s, 90s. So there's a lot to dig into. There's also obviously been a lot of evolution. And when Kate and I were speaking last week, she kind of had me take a step back and she said, it's really no small thing for a brand to be around and stay relevant for 30 years, 40, 50, 100 years. It is no small task to remain relevant. So really excited to dig into what's keeping these brands current today, but also the undercurrent that has kept them successful this whole time. So without further ado, we're going to get into it. And I actually want to start out with each of your histories. So tell us each a little bit about how you got to where you are today and then your current role. We'll start with you.
Thank you, Ellie, and good morning to everyone. So I'm gonna try to be very, very short, also because I know we have a lot of interesting thing to speak about today. So I spent the past 15 years of my life basically doing whatever into social media and digital media world. So I've been advisor for Condé Nast, I've been advisor for EssilorLuxottica, and 1 year ago I founded HYLE Consulting, that is my boutique consulting strategy for branding strategy and marketing strategies. And between my roles, I'm also creative director of Persol, that I'm very honored of being, as it is indeed almost 110 years history in the eyewear industry.
Hi, everyone. My name's Kate Langen. I have been working in beauty specifically, communications my whole career, beauty specifically for the last 15 years, I believe it is. I had the great honor, I was the first PR manager that NARS hired globally. So I worked with the brand. I was at Estee Lauder companies before that, and I was with NARS and then NARS and Laura Mercier here in the UK, so I'm very happy to be home, and then moved to New York and worked in the global headquarters. I took a little sojourn to Amsterdam where I worked at Gizou for a year, which was a really interesting experience, especially in the context of talking about legacy brands, and am now very happy to be back at NARS.
Yes, I'm Rodrigo. Good afternoon, everyone. I've been at PVH for 7 years now. Those who don't know, they own Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein, but most of my career has been in tech, so I have no idea to this day what I'm doing in fashion. Thought I was going into a Devil Wears Prada kind of situation, but luckily there was none of that. Yeah, and helping the consumer insights team, we're focusing mostly on the digital part, so we search, social creators, online audiences, and so on.
Amazing. So a lot of experience on this stage. Really excited to get into it. We're going to jump right to the million or maybe multi-million-dollar question on trends. So all of your brands have decades of legacy to uphold. And then at the same time, we have new platforms, new forms of content, trends, micro trends. We have live shopping. So tell us about your core non-negotiables as a brand, your brand identity that you will absolutely not budge on. And then from that, how are you deciding which trends to lean into and which to leave behind? So let's start with you, Rodrigo.
Yeah, so that's a tough one. I think we try to strike a balance between our heritage for both brands and also how to keep it relevant to this day. So like you were saying, I mean, compared to Persol, Tommy Hilfiger is, I think, completing 40 years this year. So it's younger than yours, but still quite a long time. So it's really, at the end of the day, is how can we, when we're talking about timeless and classics across Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger almost every day, But at the end of the day, we're trying to, how can we keep it timeless, but at the same time, timely, right? So how can we find the trends that are relevant to our heritage? How can we identify those cultural relevant conversations, regardless of platform and so on? We don't try to chase every trend, because you also run the risk of losing your identity if you do that. But it's trying to identify where can we play with authenticity and add some value to it.
And can you tell us a little bit more about how you think about like the seasonality of trends and kind of keeping some consistency while also staying fresh?
Yeah, so there's something internally that we call the brand emotional calendar. So it's been quite helpful, rather than just following the trends, trying to take a step back and understand what triggers a consumer purchase journey, right? What are the emotions, the feelings that trigger these? And so it's completely brand agnostic. We mapped all the chapters throughout the years. Well, you know, earlier in the year, people are looking for a healthier lifestyle. They have all the New Year's resolutions. In summer, they're more open to socialize, to travel, and exploring more, etc. It's back to work late in August, September. So how can we understand the feelings behind this? When you're coming back to work, you're sad because your summer vacations are done, but at the same time, you're excited to go back to the office and share your memories with colleagues, or show off your new outfits and so on. So how can we as a brand support all these moments as well? So create this emotional connection with consumers rather than a transactional one only.
I love it. It's like a full year calendar of how to respond to the Sunday scaries.
Yeah, basically.
Kate, do you want to weigh in here?
So, Ali, when you asked me if I was going to talk about trends, and there's some of my team members who are in the audience, and my challenge to begin with is that our founder, Francois NARS, does not believe in trends. So I think for us, to answer your question on what our like non-negotiable is respecting and honoring Francois's vision. And he is, anyone who's had the privilege to spend time with him, which I have, I understand why this beautiful brand is still as relevant today, 30 years on, as it was when he launched it in 1994, so 31 years this year. And so making sure that with every touch point, everything that you see from the brand has that integrity and brings his passions to life. So film, fashion, photography, as well as beauty. I mean, I was in an interview with him in September, and he just said, beauty is oxygen. And I was like, oh, wow, like took my breath away. So in terms of trends, I think we participate in them where our product has pure relevancy and where we really have the right to play. And I think we can also set them. But in terms of jumping on things, we have to do it when it's right for the product. But the trend itself, it's not really necessarily who we are, although we're not such a classical brand, being very trend-oriented. And that sort of churn of cycle is not necessarily us. So that's what it is for NARS.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you were at Gizu for a period of time. I'm curious to get your take, coming from kind of brands that had much more legacy and maybe that ethos that you don't follow trends, and then going to a smaller indie brand. By the way, if you've heard of Gizu, Kate is a big part of that reason, so you can thank her. How was that experience different, working at a completely different brand, different category at Gizu versus coming back to NARS?
You know what? I think the interesting part is that actually there's similarities in that there's two founders who are both total visionaries who believe in setting the trends and believe, so they create things that then people follow. So certainly it's understanding your consumer, it's understanding what you're going to create that's relevant for them. So in a sense, even though the two brands couldn't be more different in different categories with different consumers, it's about how, like, that clarity of vision and bringing that out to the world.
Ricardo, I think you're going to have a couple different perspectives on this, so I'm curious to get from the brand perspective first, and then we'll go from there.
Sure, but for sure, nowadays, trying to find the right balance, also mostly when you are working with classic brands, trying to find the right balance between being timeless or timely, and how Rodrigo was mentioning, on anyway, like trying to understand which are the trends that you need to embrace and what basically you can even skip. Definitely, I think it's one of the biggest challenges. Also because today trends are not only trends from a stylish point of view, you know, like not necessarily we're speaking just about the look that your product or the service or whatever like should have, but we're also speaking trends, for example, in communication channels, for example. And I think that what I try usually to do with our clients, and for example with Persol in particular, that when you are 110 years old, definitely you have a strong heritage also to kind of respect somehow, is to be 100% sure that you have a fully focus on the kind of customer that you're speaking to. And obviously that should be the priority for every brand, obviously, but even more when you have 100 years of history of speaking to customers, it's even more important to be sure that you are focused on the right one. Obviously, you kind of also have more data from a certain point of view because you have a long history, you know, of interaction. And once you have that, you know, that kind of clarity around about, you know, the kind of person that you want to reach, the target that that you are aiming, it comes quite natural to try to define your tone of voice. Also, you know, how you want to communicate to them, what you want to communicate to your possible clients, and only at that point, you know, you can decide, okay, I will go on TikTok, I will not go on TikTok. I will use Snapchat, I will not use Snapchat. Or maybe I will go on TikTok, but I will go on TikTok on this way. Or maybe, you know, I decide to go completely offline and try to reach my clients only in another way. Obviously, today having those strong, let's say, decision could even be, let's say, a statement, okay? So definitely it's hard to say. But I think that it's one of the biggest challenge today. Try to understand how to be relevant, but at the same time be coherent with your strong heritage. When obviously even more when you are speaking about brands that have this kind of heritage. So having sometimes I don't want to sell my company, but having sometimes even advisors that come from a different, you know, point of view, and also maybe can help you having a point of view that is a bit more, you know, let's say, enlarged compared to all the, let's say, executive decision that you have to take every day inside your role, can help a lot to try also to put priorities and also not trying. Also not looking that you're trying to be everywhere, because today customers, clients, users, community, as you want to as you want to call them, they also need to find you and to find the right messages in the right place at the right moment. Not too much and not enough.
Yeah, I love the theme of just certainty underpinning everything, of really understanding your audience, understanding what they're feeling at certain times of year in the moment, understanding like what your brand represents, and then not compromising on that from there. So thank you. I do want to come back to you in a second about your work as a creator, but
Sure.
Let's hop to the next question. I'm going to stick with you and Kate for this question, thinking about gaining new audiences. That's something that I'm sure we're going to hear a lot today, and creators are an amazing avenue to do that. Outside of your own channels, their content can be so impactful, so effective. You can 5x the amount of content that is out there about your brand with creators. So when you're thinking about working with creators, especially since you have so much legacy and history to protect, how are you selecting those creators that align with your brand? And what is your process and approach to that? Kate, I know you mentioned casting is your obsession, so would love to hear about your process first.
Yeah, and I think I'll talk to everybody in this room, I'm sure, is faced with the challenge of scale. And so I'm going to speak to, because we could talk about scale for an hour and a half more, about specific, like, true brand partners and how we select them and how we build campaigns and those longer term partnerships. And for me, it truly is casting, like Ali said, it really is everything. And it's building a partnership where the brand and the creator are so inherently aligned, and then also you within the brand understand their content so inherently that you can build something that feels, I think we all talk about authentic and organic, but that truly you know it's going to work before you even start because you watch this person's content every day, you know how they use product. And also, we look for people who are true experts, and I don't necessarily mean beauty experts, but they can be experts in their fields that are aligned to our brand equity. So be it fashion, be it travel, be it makeup artistry. So actually finding people who can speak with authenticity, but also authority. And so then it allows you to brief a partnership where there's fluidity, and you can, it doesn't just become about number of posts for a certain amount of spend. It's about what you're building for the long term with this person and giving them creative freedom because you've done the work up front.
So Ricardo,
If everybody was speaking like Kate, the influencer world would be way better. I'm telling you.
I could really listen to Kate speak all day. So Ricardo, would love to come to you from the brand perspective. How do you find creators that are the right fit? But then also from the creator perspective yourself.
Sure.
If you don't know, Ricardo has 300,000 followers on Instagram. So he has the dual perspective. So would love to hear both from you.
Yeah, so from the brand point of view, I think that it's really hard to say better than, or anyway, to add something to what Kate just said. But definitely, I completely agree on the fact that authenticity, and I love that you mentioned authority also. It's very, characteristic that you should find in the people that are representing and anyway, speaking about your product or your brand, like we use the word creator. We also use very often the word ambassador. Like if you really think about the etymology of the word, it's ambassade, like the embassy, So we're speaking about somebody that in another country should represent your country. So somebody that is really and deeply able to speak on behalf of you to somebody else, So when you start really analyzing, that kind of what a creator should need to be able and authentic and having that kind of also authority to speak about that, we're speaking about somebody that is really embracing the value of your brand and your product. So definitely I think that being able to select, those kind of people, it's, again, as Kate just said, like, that it's going to work even before starting. And I think that's absolutely great. On the other side, I'm so lucky that I'm also a creator or ambassador. I work for very classic brands: Loro Piana, Audemars Piguet, Acqua di Parma, Land Rover. And just to mention, for example, when we speak about authenticity, I bought 2 Land Rovers in my life before becoming an ambassador. When Land Rover launched the Defender in Italy back in 2020, they said, "You, man, you're gonna be our ambassador." I said, "Yes," and literally, I think that's couldn't be such a more authentic match. Like first of all, I was a client of Land Rover. So they said, okay, like maybe you don't have 3 million followers, you have 300,000 followers. You are speaking about Land Rover, Land Rover, you know the product, you drive it, you travel the world on a Land Rover. Like who better than you can speak about our car and can embrace our values, like our adventurous attitude and stuff. So still today, it's 5 years later, I'm still an ambassador for Land Rover and Defender. And I think that those are the sort of, like match made in heaven. Like they literally seek for somebody that can embrace all the characteristics of the product and the values of the brand. And thankfully, I was the one on that side. And I have to say that when you, even as a creator, when I found the brand that is also not only working with a creator in terms of, okay, I want you because you are cool, because you have a following and whatever, but I want you and I want to make you live the brand. That's also something that I really suggest as a brand advisor but that I bring from my experience as a creator. Like as a creator, like we need to create contents, you know, and created contents must be something also authentic, the content for our community, for the people that are following us every day and that are interested in us and in what we are saying. So if a brand is putting me in the condition that I can create a content that is authentic to me and authentic to them, so it's going to be great also for my, let's say, readers, followers, or, you know, call it. So even that is very important. Like once you have as a brand manager, marketing, PR, whatever, when you have very clear in your mind what you want the client, you know, the possible client to leave, you have to make experiences to create events, to create, you know, a content narrative that influencer, ambassador, creators can, you know, just amplify and not necessarily, you know, let's say, misleadingly like change it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Believe it or not, we are coming close to the end of our time. So I do want to wrap up with a question around one of the biggest reasons why we're all here today, measurement. So Rodrigo, I want to come to you first. When you're thinking about working with your teams internally and measuring what does good look like, how are you approaching that?
Yeah, so we do have all the usual suspects in terms of metrics, but I think we are trying to do things a little bit differently. So there are a couple of examples that I think are quite interesting. One's called the share of social wardrobe, and the other the brand attributes, as we call them internally. So take Fashion Week, for instance, New York Fashion Week last year in 24, where Tommy Hilfiger was back in New York to present a show. If you look at all the fashion brands, all the fashion publications, they all look at number of total mentions to see who won Fashion Week, right? And it's a great PR thing, but it's not very actionable in terms of strategic direction that you want for the brands. So if we have like an completely sustainable upcycled collection that year, for instance, we want to make sure that the brand is being talked about in terms of sustainability and those themes and so on. So what we do is we look at all the participating brands and see, okay, what are the attributes that are valuable for our brand? So sustainability, innovation, inclusivity, and so on, modern, etc. So are we being talked about these themes more or the same as these brands? So if you're looking at, we want to look cool and modern, but Fendi was, I don't know, 20% higher in terms of mentions than we were. Then that's how we then feed this back to the marketing teams, the campaign teams and so on, the influencer teams, and see how can we be more efficient in this conversation. Right? The share of social wardrobe is quite interesting as well. So we take social data, all the more than 5 million mentions per month of hashtag OOTD, outfit of the day, for those who don't know. And we remove all spams. I guess all of you know, but I didn't when I joined 7 years ago. So we remove all the spam, and retailers just end up with the real consumers at the end, and they are actually wearing the brands they love so much. They're actually showing it with, sharing it with the world. So we can then track this, our share of voice, if you will, within this social wardrobe. It's the closest thing you can do to get into the homes and open the wardrobes and see, okay, what are the brands that you have there? So we track this. It's real time. We combine this with share of search as well, in partnership with Google, with over 40 brands. And then you have a really clear picture of where your brand is moving to, how it's evolving, if there's bigger desirability, bigger consideration, and so on. And it's a great indication also for your market share after a couple of months.
Such an amazing use of hashtag data, too. A completely new concept to me, and I love it. Kate, thoughts?
So measurement, I think if I were to choose one metric that we look at the most, it's really how we're ranking versus our competitors in the markets where we're present. So that's our guiding light, number one. And I think it's also, we recognize everybody's time poor. So what is something that that is actionable, that's not super time consuming to dig into? And then the other piece that we obsess over is retention. So we want, when people fall in love with NARS, to stay in love with NARS. So that we gain a creator, that we're not losing them, and really just making sure that the work that we're doing is resonating in our markets and that we're really present where our consumers are.
Amazing. Well, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, if I can just
Yeah,
wrap
go
up
for it. Absolutely.
what they
Yeah.
just said. Like, I think that working with many different, type of brands, I think that a suggest that I can give to anybody working in marketing. It's really important not to necessarily be stuck to one type of metrics or whatever, because it's very also it really depends a lot on the type also of phase that the brand is living. Like, maybe there are very young brand that they need to gain awareness, a very established brand that they need to gain maybe retention or reposition in the market because of for 15 years they haven't been on top of the mind of the consumer. So it's really important, I think, also to try to evolve together with the brand and try always to have a very dynamic approach to metrics.
Yeah, I think that is such a good point to bring us home. Honestly, metrics are not one size fits all. Depends on the brand, the time of the brand, even the campaign. So
Totally.
thank you for bringing that up. Awesome. We are officially at time. So thank you so much to Ricardo, Kate, and
you.
Rodrigo. Really
Thank you,
appreciate
Alex.
your time.
Thank you.
Thank you all for
Thank you
coming.
very much.